Dwayne Haskins, he's been benched. Now, he's not, this is weird. Kyle Allen, of course, started for Ron Rivera last year in fill-in duty in Carolina, is the starting quarterback in D.C., and Dwayne Haskins is no longer the backup. I don't even know if he's third string because at practice day, he wasn't there. Some of it is you get the news and you're like, man, maybe I need a personal day. He was there, he just wasn't taking reps. Like, okay. But Alex Smith, who of course is a Pro Bowl quarterback and had that gruesome knee injury, is actually making a ton of money and is trying to have this incredible comeback. He's the backup. So look, on some levels, when you have Kyle Allen, still a young dude, still in his third year in the league, second year starting, he still hasn't started a complete season. You're better off having Alex Smith there, but Alex Smith could still be there. They could keep them both in uniform, but to move Dwayne Haskins from starter, first-round draft pick to third string 4 games into the season, woo. Now, remember, going back to last week, Ron Rivera put Dwayne Haskins on notice. Put him on notice. And like we all told you, like he has no ownership over Dwayne Haskins. I actually came into the season feeling bad about Dwayne Haskins because he was drafted by a president who was no longer there. And really is because the owner's kid went to high school with him in D.C., and he had this great year, obviously, last year with Ohio State. But that was the coaching staff didn't want to draft him, didn't like him. Well, that wasn't their type of quarterback. Anyway, now the owner he's not powerless, but he has ceded most of his power to Ron Rivera, who didn't draft him as well. There's a lot to get to here, but I want to share with you a tweet that I sent out on February 27th. March, April, May, June, July, August, September. So we're talking over 7 months ago. I happened to have a conversation with somebody very close to the staff last year who told me, and this is the tweet was, one Redskins source told me Dwayne Haskins was so bad with the Redskins playbook that the previous staff was concerned he was dyslexic. He is not. Now, what people freak out when they read a tweet like that. But here's the thing. Here's basically the way it went down. They couldn't understand why he couldn't get the play calls out. Now, if you ever heard the Gruden system, it's complex. And when you're a kid who comes out of college probably a year early, a much more simplistic system, like it's a lot. But there were a lot of people saying Dwayne Haskins isn't doing the work. This was Urban Meyer on the Herd when Dwayne Haskins was preparing for the draft.
Is he mature enough to be the face of a $5 billion franchise?
Not yet. He's close, though. He's only got 1 year under his belt, and I think the situation will be perfect. And there's a couple of them out there. He comes in, he learns for a year. At some point, he'll be the face of a franchise.
Okay, because the Giants are a $6 billion franchise eventually, and there's a lot of heat in New York. You put him behind Eli, show him how to be a pro. That worked for you?
A lot of conversation about that, and without studying it in great detail, I think that's ideal.
Okay.
Now, if you remember, the Giants got eviscerated for drafting Danny Dimes, right, and passing on Dwayne Haskins. And one reason that Dave Gettleman said they made the pick that they made was they thought the Redskins actually wanted their quarterback. This was Doug Williams, of course, former Redskin quarterback, won a Super Bowl, part of the organization. On 5 days before I tweeted that, on Sirius XM talking about Haskins.
Him and I talk. I try not to. I tell him all the time, I'm not your coach. I just try to tell him what he has to do to get him out of that mentality that I can just gallivant all over the place on the off season when really you need to be here trying to find out what I need to do for the season.
He's telling everybody that like this guy is not working hard enough. He's not focusing on the playbook. Now, there were reports, and again, this is like every season, the recruiting class in college football is better than before. Any group of guys that stays around campus, great gains in strength, and any question we have about a player has gotten better. They've worked best offseason we've ever had. So Dwayne Haskins had really bought in, shown great leadership. And I'm telling you that the previous staff, granted, they were not fans of Haskins. Part of it was the assumption of work ethic. But they couldn't figure out why he couldn't grasp the playbook. So much so that they started asking themselves in a meeting and calling around and checking his medicals, like, is there any chance he's dyslexic? That it's a way in which he has to learn differently than somebody else. Like, nope, he's a pretty intelligent guy. He has no learning disabilities at all. But whether it's work ethic or acumen, like, look, dude, Tebow couldn't pick up a playbook. Johnny Manziel, right? Everybody talked about Johnny Manziel's inability, whether it was the partying he was doing off the football field or just lacking the outright intelligence. Now, I understand what happens if I say, hey, maybe he's not smart enough to be an NFL quarterback, and Dwayne Haskins happens to be black. Okay. There are smart quarterbacks that are white. There are dumb quarterbacks that are white. There are smart quarterbacks that are black. There are dumb. It's a really, 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 really hard job that requires an immense amount, not just of intelligence, but also focus. So I don't know what it is. I don't know which it is. Now, look, Dwayne Haskins also not really that athletic. Like anyone who wants to stereotype quarterbacks, he's got a great arm. He's an awesome thrower. And at Ohio State, he was amazing. But athletically, he's very limited. And nowadays in the NFL, they want a guy who can, it's not just about throwing the football. You got to get back. If you're going to run play action, which Scott Turner, you're going to run a lot of screen passes, you got to be agile. Like, he's a bad athlete. Bad athlete. Kyle Allen's more athletic than he is. That's why the stereotypes of black and white quarterbacks are just dumb. They're just dumb. You know, some white guys are athletic, some white guys are not athletic, some black guys are athletic, some are not athletic. It doesn't. Daniel Jones is a better athlete than Dwayne Haskins, period. Right? And if a guy is smart, it's not because of the color of his skin, it's because some guys are smart. Or if the guy is more locked in. Could be both. Right? Could be a concentration thing. I don't know what it is. All I can tell you is the guy lost his job 4 weeks into the season. And one of the big things is they had to trim down the playbook because he just can't grasp the whole thing in his second year as a pro. Now, is it hard because it's his second playbook in 2 years and he didn't have the full offseason program? Sure. But Ron Rivera got the job before the Super Bowl. Hey, I know we interviewed Ron Rivera in Miami. And the guys that want to be great, like a Tom Brady, they go and illegally meet with Byron Leftwich, their quarterback coach. By the way, another former quarterback. And they dig in. And they know, and even for those guys, it's hard because the different quarterback language. So I'm not saying it's easy. It's a hard job. There's 32 of them in the country. 32 jobs. And he had one in his hometown. And you can say, and I've read anyway, he got a raw deal. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. Dude, have you ever heard of a quarterback missing a victory formation snap because he's taking a selfie with a fan? You ever heard that before? Yes, you've heard it once. Dwayne Haskins. That was him. Hey? Yeah, he struggled last year, but he got some valuable experience. And, you know, they were like, look, he's going to start the season. We're going to figure it out. And I'm sure there's some confirmation bias. But if you think that Ron Rivera wants to make a change, like he's just, like, this is, you're doing high school parent stuff. I tell this to kids all the time. Do coaches play favorites? Yes, they do. You know what their favorites are? The guys who are going to help them win. Because you know what happens when you win? Everybody gets more money. You know how happy the Redskins would be if they could win with Dwayne Haskins? Oh, I'm sorry. The Washington football team would be if they could win with Dwayne Haskins. A hometown kid, okay, who is a great college quarterback, who had naysayers his first year, happens to be a black quarterback, right? And obviously there was the people deemed the nickname to be offensive, right? So you have, there's nothing wrong with him as a human being. He doesn't have baggage as a human being. But more than anything, like, you want your rookie quarterback on a rookie contract to win, to be good enough to win with. If he's good enough, now you can build a whole team around him on that rookie contract. They can eventually bid adieu to Alex Smith. He plays on the rookie deal. They keep loading up the roster. That's the dream scenario. Of course they want him to succeed. He's just not good enough. He's just not. And I don't know whether it's acumen. There's nothing in his Wonderlic or his intelligence that tells you that he's not smart enough. It maybe he hasn't bought into it, or it may be just an inability to react and change to a new football language. Whatever it is, it ain't good enough. And a different coaching staff has noticed the same things. Not athletic, not able to grasp the deep concepts of the offense after being in it for a couple of months. His college head coach told you he wasn't ready. Doug Williams said he wasn't mature enough. Somebody on Jay Gruden's staff told me that they couldn't figure out exactly why he couldn't remember what he was supposed to remember. And now we're 2 months, essentially, or 2.5 months. They had 6 weeks leading up and then 4 weeks of the season. You're 2.5 months into a brand new coach who the only bias he brought in was what he saw on film in trying to evaluate you. And you've lived down to the negative. And they're like, and oh yeah, by the way, his agent tweeted something Saturday or Sunday morning about the rest of the team has to get better. Dwayne Haskins doesn't have to get better. Like there is no accountability. Too many people around him telling him, nah, it's the line. It's Trent Williams not being there last year. It's the running backs. It's the wide receivers. And it may well be. But you can't fool Ron Rivera. You can't fool Scott Turner. You had 2.5, 3 months plus the entire offseason on Zoom to figure out what you were supposed to figure out. And for whatever reason, it didn't happen. And oh yeah, by the way, I wasn't wrong. I was told by it. It didn't mean that anybody was dumb. It had nothing to do with being black. It only has to do with one thing only. They couldn't figure out how a guy who of reasonable high intelligence, right? You don't draft a guy if he's as a quarterback if he's dope. Everything they thought was he's a pretty bright kid. He's played the position a ton. He played the position great at Ohio State. Why they couldn't get him to figure out their offense. That's happened for 2 different offenses. Don't know what it is. Doesn't matter. Train left the station.